coming up out of the earth. And he had two horns like a lamb and spoke like a dragon. Other versions say he had two horns like a lamb, but he spoke like a dragon. Now the remarkable thing about this second beast, this earth beast, is that it has a split personality. In other words, it has a positive side and it has a negative side. The positive side are the two horns like a lamb, because we're going to notice in Revelation that the lamb represents Jesus Christ. So this beast has a positive side, the two horns like a lamb. But it says that this same beast that has two horns like a lamb speaks like what? Like a dragon. Let me ask you, what similarity is there between a dragon and a lamb? No similarity at all. And yet in this one beast, you find these two characteristics. Two horns like a lamb. It has two aspects like a lamb, but it speaks like a dragon. In other words, it has a dual personality. It has a split personality. Now, I want you to notice that it's not that this beast has two horns like a lamb, and then the two horns are broken. In other words, it ceases being like a lamb, and then it speaks like a dragon when the two horns are broken. No. The Bible says that it speaks like a dragon even while it still has the two horns. In other words, it professes one thing, but it actually lives another. In other words, it professes two principles we're going to notice that Christ entertained. And it's going to say, we believe in that, but at the same time, it's going to persecute like the dragon of Revelation chapter 12. Now, let's identify this lamb beast. Let's see, actually it's not a lamb beast, but the beast that has two horns like a lamb. Let's review the order of kingdoms that we studied last time. You remember that we have a lion. What kingdom does the lion represent? Babylon. Then we have a bear. What kingdom does the bear represent? The Medes and Persians. Then we have a leopard. What kingdom does the leopard represent? Greece. Then we have a dragon beast. And what does that dragon beast represent? Rome. And then that dragon beast grows 10 horns. What do the 10 horns represent that come from the head of Rome, of the dragon beast? It represents Rome that was divided into 10 kingdoms as a result of the barbarian invasions. 476 is the key date. That's when the last Roman emperor was deposed. And then you have the little horn, which represents the papacy, which, by the way, is Roman also. It comes from the head of the dragon beast, which is Rome. And it rules for 1,260 years. But then, at the end of the 1,260 years, it receives a what? A deadly wound. The sword that it used to persecute now turns against it. In other words, the sword is taken out of its hand. And the sword rises against it and gives it a deadly wound. And for a while, this beast is inactive. This sea beast is inactive because it has a deadly wound. But the Bible says that its deadly wound is going to be what? Healed. Now, I want you to notice something very interesting about this beast. When this first beast falls, when the sea beast receives its deadly wound, at that moment is when this land beast rises. So we have a chronological detail to know exactly when this beast is going to arise in the flow of history. Let's notice several characteristics. Characteristic number one of this land beast that is going to give the sword back to the sea beast, and it's going to impose the mark of the sea beast, it's going to impose the number of the sea beast, it's going to make an image of the sea beast, it's going to tell everyone to worship the sea beast. In other words, everything it does is with reference to the sea beast. It's almost like it doesn't have its own identity. It arose for one purpose, and that was to return the identity or the ability to persecute to that first beast. Now, notice Revelation chapter 13, verses 10 and 11. Revelation 13, verses 10 and 11. Verse 10 speaks about the deadly wound. It says, "He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword." See, that's the deadly wound. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. And notice immediately after it speaks about the deadly wound, we find in verse 11, "Then." So when the first beast falls, it says, "Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb and spoke like a dragon." So when does this second beast rise? It rises to power when the first beast receives its deadly wound. In other words, it does not arise in the midst of strife. Winds of strife represent wars. It doesn't have to conquer any previous nation. It actually arises in a different place. It can't be in Asia, and it can't be in Europe. You say, why not? Because if you read Daniel chapter 7, you'll notice that the lion and the bear, which are Asian powers, by the way, rose from the sea. Also, the leopard and the dragon beast, which are European powers, rose from the sea as well. But this beast rises from the earth, which means that it must rise in a different place. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Now, something very important is that prophecy is actually moving from east to west. Because the first two beasts are Asian powers, the lion and the bear. The next two beasts are European powers, which is Greece and Rome. And by the way, always moving further what? Further west. So where would you expect this beast from the earth to arise? Probably further west than Europe. And let me ask you, what is it that is west from Europe? North America. The United States of America. In fact, it's interesting that there are no waters. It rises from the earth. Waters represent multitudes, nations, tongues, and peoples. Let me ask you, when the pilgrims came to the United States, were there lots of people living in this country? Was it like the old country, Europe? Absolutely not. There were very few living here. I'm going to give you some statistics a little bit later on. In fact, let me read you a couple of statements. One of them is by Daniel J. Burstein, who for many years was the Librarian of Congress. He says this about North America. The vacancy of North America was to prove to be its peculiar promise to the world, that is, of the United States. Emptiness was America's special fertility. And another author said this, G.A. Townsend, about the territory where this country arose. The history of the United States was separated by a beneficent providence from the wild and cruel history of the rest of the continent. And like a silent seed, we grew into an empire. So the United States arose in silence. No winds, no wars, no fighting other nations. It arose in the earth where there was a scarcity of people. It arose around the year 1798, and this author says that it arose like a plant. Do you know that word that's used, I saw another beast rise from the earth, that word rise is used in the New Testament to describe a plant that grows from the earth. It's interesting that this historian says, in the last quotation I read, like a silent seed, we grew into an empire. Now another point that will help us identify this power is that the first beast, the sea beast, and this earth beast are contemporaneous. In other words, they exist at the same time. But the first beast is older than this second beast, because the second beast rises after the first beast has ruled for 1,260 years. In other words, they exist at the same time. They're powers that are simultaneous in the flow of history. And the interesting thing is that this second beast actually helps the first beast to get its power back. The Bible tells us that this second power is not going to fight that first power, but is actually going to do everything possible to restore the power to the first beast. Unbelievable. Revelation 13 also says that this power is going to be worldwide. And it's going to be a superpower. It's going to be a superpower economically because the Bible says that he's going to forbid to buy and sell to whoever does not receive the mark of the beast. It's a worldwide military power because it says that it's going to kill everyone who does not receive the mark of the beast. And it is also a worldwide political power because it says that everybody on earth, all the world, marveled and worshiped the beast. In other words, this second beast is the enforcer of the first beast. This second beast is actually the sword in the first beast's hand.